Welcome to your broker admin, where we dive into the latest review outcomes, share practical tips in our Humpday Helpers, and feature special industry guest interviews to help you stay on top of the game. Whether you're flying solo or part of a team, we're here to help you streamline your processes and work smarter, not harder.
Well, another week, another episode. Time to jump into a new edition of Your Broker Admin. But before we dive into episode 69, here's your regular weekly bonus history bite. On this day in history, April the 15th, we've got a fairly disastrous run of events. In 1865, US President Abraham Lincoln dies after being shot the previous evening by John Wilkes Booth. Then in 1912, the RMS Titanic sinks at 2:20 a.m. in the North Atlantic after running into an iceberg on her maiden voyage. And finally, in 2019, a major fire causes significant damage to the Notre-Dame Cathedral in Paris. Moving on to slightly less dramatic events, we kick off with the reviews wrap-up, covering the week ending the 10th of April 2026. A shorter week combined with staff enjoying extended breaks led to lower activity levels, but importantly, the client conversations continue to tick along nicely. Then we'll slide into this week's Humpday Helper, where I share a broker engine tip for handling deals with multiple unrelated applicants. I'm Rob Cummings. Thanks for tuning into the show, and let's get into this week's episode. In this week's reviews wrap-up, we look at outcomes from loan reviews completed during the week ending the 10th of April 2026. It was another short week after the Easter break, combined with one of the team taking some well-earned leave to maximise the break. Fortunately, they were blessed with some beautiful weather. We just had the 3 completed reviews that received a rate reduction, providing the borrowers with $1,900 in interest savings. Most of that was for a Bank West customer, where we secured a 0.2% rate reduction, netting them a $1,500 saving. On another note, there were a couple of loans where we didn't obtain a rate reduction, but only because they were already on such a good rate. One was a Macquarie customer on an owner-occupied rate of 5.74, and even better was the Teacher Mutual's customer on 5.64%. A good position to be in for both clients, but we're still looking forward to connecting with them during the week. Now on to a couple of client conversations. The first client has an owner-occupied loan with ANZ, which settled back in 2022. This is a first-time review for us for this client, and our rate review returned a no-change result. The current rate is 5.97, so not brilliant, but not horrible. We spoke with the client who confirmed they had just bought a 10-acre property along the river, about 65 k's east of Echuca, which settles the first week of June. The broker is arranging the finance for this purchase. The client has 2 ex-wives who he gets along with famously, and one is actually the financial controller of his company. He went on to explain that he's just come back from travelling 18 months around Australia with his dog. The home is virtually off-grid with a new bore and power, but with solar. He also has a couple of large adjoining buildings, but he's yet to work out what he wants to do with them. He's thinking he may get some alpacas, as it has a full shearing shed on the property. He expressed that he's a bit nervous as the last 2 owners got dementia after a short period. Told him that we will have to completely recall this conversation again next year then. We both had a good laugh at that one. He stated that he really appreciated the review and thanked us for the call. Another client has their owner-occupied loan with St George, settling only 2 years ago in 2024. We completed the rate review for them last year, resulting in a no-change outcome, with the same again this year, which is understandable, really, given they are on a pretty competitive rate at 5.85%. We called and spoke with the client for a very long time, as it turned out. They came across as a highly intelligent person. They are very high up in the education field and currently looking for a deanship right now. They've looked at both Perth and Brisbane and stated they would be willing to move for work. This is where the conversation started to get lengthy, as they wanted to talk about property values and the effect of migration on house prices. Then the conversation suddenly drifted over to the Middle East, etc. Unfortunately, we weren't able to resolve any world issues. We got their new email address and have updated the broker systems accordingly. Apparently, they left their old work email address nearly 12 months ago. We sent the client a confirmation email along with a copy of the property report that we'd generated for them. So not a lot to report this week in terms of numbers, but that's not really the point. The conversations were still there. Whether it's 3 reviews or 30, the outcome is the same. You stay connected, you stay relevant, and you give the client a reason to come back to you when something does change. And what stood out again was how willing clients are to engage when you actually pick up the phone and speak with them. Not always about rates, not always about lending. Clients appreciate the contact. They value the check-in. And more often than not, what starts as a simple review turns into something more down the track. That's where the real value sits. This week's Humpday Helper number 174 is not one that you're likely to use often, but handy to know if you ever do run into this scenario with Broker Engine. Key fact find information in Broker Engine is done at an application level and not client level. So when you build out your deal, things like dependents and living expenses automatically get assigned to the primary borrower. However, Broker Engine allows you to go into any of the applicant's profile outside of the primary applicant and nominate their own household. This then allows you to allocate dependents and living expenses to that household. In our recent scenario, we had a joint application with 4 individual borrowers, 2 married couples, with 2 dependents for each couple. We created our own household for the primary applicant of the second couple, which then allowed us to allocate their dependents, living expenses, and even home contents to that household. Whilst this was an unusual deal structure, very rarely do we get 4 individual applicants, but this scenario could just as easily apply when you have 2 applicants who aren't in a relationship. Family siblings, for example, who don't share a household.
Thanks for listening to your broker admin. If you've got feedback, questions, or a topic you'd like covered on the show, you can now send it through via our Contact the Show page. The link is in the episode notes. If the link's not clickable in your player, just copy it from the show notes or head to the episode description on your phone. A rating on Apple Podcasts, a review on Podchaser, or a follow on Spotify all help the show reach the people it's built for. This has been your broker admin for those who like their process neat.